The War Council chamber of the Crimson Ascendant gleamed like the inside of a weapon, all polished surfaces and sharp edges, designed to remind anyone who entered that they were in the presence of the Threnody Empire's most deadly predators. Queen Commander Vexalia stood at the center of the crystalline table, her 4 arms spread wide as she examined the object that had become both trophy and torment. Her ceremonial battle armor. 3 months, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the chamber's crystal walls resonate with barely controlled fury. 3 months, and this is the best your artisans can produce. The breastplate lying before her told a story of humiliation that every being in the chamber knew by heart. Forged from quantum steel mined in the heart of dying stars, inscribed with battle honors spanning 1,000 campaigns, it had been the pride of the Threnody war machine, until the humans at Kepler Station had turned their crude plasma weapons against it and reduced it to scrap metal. Master Artisan Corvith, his segmented carapace gleaming with the chrome inlays that marked his elevated status, stepped forward with the careful movements of someone approaching a singularity. Your Majesty, the quantum steel's molecular structure was compromised in ways we have never encountered. Human plasma weapons create resonance patterns that— Excuses, Vexalia cut him off, her secondary arms flexing in the gesture that preceded violence among her people. I did not ask for excuses, I asked for results. The repairs were obvious to anyone with eyes. Ugly welding scars crisscrossed the breastplate's surface like a map of failure, while sections of mismatched alloy created a patchwork pattern that would have been laughable if it weren't so pathetic. Worse, the quantum resonance chambers that should have glowed with stored energy remained dark and lifeless. The humans destroyed this with primitive technology. General Threx observed from his position at the table's far end, his tone carrying just enough challenge to make the other council members tense. Perhaps we should acknowledge that their crude methods are more effective than we assumed. The humans got lucky, Commander Zephyrs interjected, though her conviction sounded forced. Their chaotic tactics confused our targeting systems. It won't happen again. Vexalia's laugh was like grinding metal. Won't it? This armor has protected me through battles against the Void Reapers, the Stellar Consortium, and the Crystal Hives. Enemies with technology that makes human weapons look like sharp sticks. Yet somehow, those sharp sticks accomplished what none of our traditional enemies could. She gestured at the damaged breastplate with all 4 arms, and every being in the chamber felt the weight of implications. The Threnody Empire had built its dominance on technological superiority, on the belief that perfect engineering and superior materials could overcome any obstacle. The humans had shattered that belief with weapons cobbled together from mining equipment and stubbornness. Your Majesty, Master Artisan Corvith tried again, if we could study the human plasma technology more closely, perhaps analyze the specific resonance frequencies they employed. We have human prisoners, Vexalia said, cutting him off again. We have captured human ships with their technology intact. We have everything we need to understand their methods. What we lack is competence. The insult struck the assembled artisans like a physical blow. Corvith's chrome inlays dimmed with shame, while the other craftsmen pressed themselves lower against the chamber floor. In Threnody society, to be called incompetent was to be declared unfit for existence. Perhaps, General Threx suggested with the careful tone of someone testing dangerous waters, we should consider alternative approaches. The human engineering methods, while crude, seem to produce unexpected results. You suggest we lower ourselves to human standards. Commander Zephyrs' outrage was palpable. Abandon millennia of refined technique for the random tinkering of primitives. I suggest we recognize that those primitives accomplish something our finest minds cannot, Threx replied. They didn't just damage this armor, they changed it. The quantum steel itself has been altered in ways that our traditional repair methods cannot address. Vexalia studied the damaged breastplate with the intensity of a predator analyzing prey. The battle at Kepler Station had been her first taste of defeat in over 2 centuries of warfare, and the memory burned like acid in her mind. She had expected easy victory over the human outpost, had planned to add their crewed ships to her trophy collection. Instead, she had retreated with her flagship damaged and her pride in ruins. "The humans fight like the universe is trying to kill them," she said eventually. "No elegance, no adherence to proper tactical doctrine. They take whatever they have available and find ways to make it work." "Exactly," Commander Zephyrs nodded. "Chaotic, unpredictable, impossible to counter with conventional strategy." "Not impossible," Vexalia corrected, her eyes never leaving the armor. "Just different. They don't follow our rules because they don't know our rules exist. They look at a problem and solve it using whatever materials and methods are at hand." Master Artisan Corvith raised his head slightly. "Your Majesty, surely you are not suggesting—" "I am suggesting that 3 months of failure speaks louder than 3 millennia of tradition," Vexalia said. "Perhaps it is time to consider approaches that our enemies might find unconventional." The implications of her words rippled through the chamber like shockwaves. The idea of seeking help from primitive humans was unthinkable, a violation of everything the Threnody Empire represented. Yet the damaged armor lying before them was proof that the unthinkable had already happened. Vexalia's 4 arms moved in the ritual gesture of command decision. "Bring me the human engineer." Chief Engineer Thomas Chen had seen worse workshops than the converted cargo hold of the captured human vessel Endeavor, but not many. The Threnody had stripped out most of the original human equipment and replaced it with their own crystalline technology, creating a hybrid workspace that looked like someone had tried to marry a computer lab with a medieval forge, and invited both sets of relatives to the ceremony. "Hand me that plasma coil," Chen called to his guard, a Threnody warrior named Kithex who had gradually evolved from captor to reluctant assistant over the past 3 months. "The blue one, not the green one. Green one's for the nav systems, blue one's for never mind, I'll get it myself." Kithex's 4 arms moved with practiced efficiency, selecting the correct component and passing it to Chen without being asked twice. The alien had learned that arguing with the human engineer's seemingly random requests usually led to more work, not less. "You know," Chen said conversationally as he began integrating the human plasma coil into a Threnody power distribution array, "back home, they'd call this kind of setup a fire hazard. Hell, they'd probably call it a war crime against good engineering practice. Yet it functions," Kithex observed, watching Chen's hands move with the confident precision of someone who had learned to make impossible things work with insufficient resources. "Your hybrid system show efficiency improvements of 12% over standard Threnody configurations." 12%, huh? Chen grinned, using a human welding torch to fuse alien crystalline circuits in a way that would have horrified engineers from both species. "Not bad for primitive human tinkering, as Commander Zephyrs likes to call it." The integration was delicate work, requiring Chen to balance human engineering principles with Threnody theoretical frameworks, where human technology relied on robust, adaptable systems that could function under less than ideal conditions. Threnody engineering pursued perfection through precise calibration and optimal materials. Chen had learned to find the sweet spot between chaos and order, creating systems that were both reliable and efficient. "Thomas Chen," Kithex said, using the human's name with the careful pronunciation that indicated respect, "may I ask you something?" "Shoot." Chen didn't look up from his work, but his tone was encouraging. "Your people lost the battle at Kepler Station. Your ships were captured, your crews taken prisoner, yet you seem content. Why?" Chen paused in his work, considering the question. "You know what I was doing before the war started? Mining engineer on Tau Ceti Prime. 14-hour days fixing equipment that should have been scrapped 5 years ago, breathing recycled air that tasted like metal shavings, and getting paid just enough to afford protein bars that probably weren't technically food. And this is preferable. Well, the hours are better, the food is definitely better, and I get to work on technology that's actually interesting. Chen resumed his integration work, his movements economical and precise. Plus, I'm learning things that no human engineer has ever had the chance to study. Your crystalline matrices are absolutely fascinating. The way they channel energy through resonant frequencies instead of traditional conductors. Kithex's chrome carapace shifted to patterns that indicated confusion. You speak of our technology with admiration, yet we are enemies. Are we? Chen looked up from his work, meeting the alien's compound eyes directly. I mean, sure, our governments are shooting at each other, but you and I are just trying to keep the lights on and the life support running. Seems to me we've got more in common than our respective leaders might like to admit. Before Kithex could respond, the workshop's communication array crackled to life with the harmonics that indicated a priority message from the command deck. Chen recognized the voice of Commander Zephy's, though the translation matrix made her words sound mechanical and cold. All repair operations are to be suspended immediately. The human engineer is required in the War Council chamber for consultation. Chen and Kithex looked at each other, both recognizing that consultation in the middle of a crisis usually meant someone was about to get blamed for something they didn't do. Think they finally figured out who's been upgrading their power systems without permission? Chen asked, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen better decades. Your modifications have improved fleet efficiency by 8%, Kithex replied. Even Commander Zephy's cannot argue with results. Yeah, but I've learned that people can argue with pretty much anything if they put their minds to it. Chen set down his tools with the careful precision of someone who might not get a chance to use them again. Well, whatever this is about, standing here worrying won't change it. As they made their way through the ship's corridors toward the command section, Chen found himself thinking about the past 3 months of captivity. He'd expected interrogation, imprisonment, possibly execution. Instead, he'd found himself drafted into keeping the Threnody fleet operational, working alongside guards who had gradually become colleagues and solving engineering problems that challenged everything he thought he knew about technology. Kithex, he said as they approached the War Council chamber, if this goes badly, I want you to know, working with you has been the highlight of my engineering career. Your people's approach to energy distribution is going to revolutionize human technology, assuming anyone survives long enough to implement it. And your adaptive methodologies have shown us that perfection is not always the optimal solution, Kithex replied. Perhaps survival is more important than either of our species initially understood. The doors to the War Council chamber dilated open, revealing the assembled Threnody leadership arranged around their crystalline table like predators at a kill. In the center of the table lay what Chen immediately recognized as a piece of battle armor, quantum steel construction, ceremonial inscriptions, and damage patterns that screamed human plasma weapon to anyone who knew what to look for. Well, Chen said under his breath, this should be interesting. Queen Commander Vexalia's fist struck the damaged breastplate with enough force to make the entire crystalline table ring like a struck bell. The sound echoed through the War Council chamber, followed by a silence so complete that Chen could hear the subtle harmonics of the ship's power systems running through the walls. Who repaired this armor? Vexalia's voice carried frequencies that made Chen's bones ache. Though he'd learned to interpret Threnody vocal patterns well enough to recognize barely controlled rage mixed with something that might have been desperation. The assembled artisans pressed themselves lower against the chamber floor, their chrome inlays dimming with collective shame. Master Artisan Corvith's segmented carapace actually clicked with the nervous tension that preceded either flight or complete shutdown in his species. Chen looked at the damaged breastplate, his engineer's eye immediately cataloging the repair work. Ugly welding scars, mismatched alloys, dead quantum resonance chambers. Classic case of trying to fix something without understanding how it had been broken in the first place. I did, Chen said, his voice cutting through the silence like a plasma torch through soft metal. Every compound eye in the chamber focused on him with laser intensity. Commander Zephys's 4 arms moved to her weapon harnesses in an automatic threat response, while General Threx's carapace shifted to the mottled patterns that indicated either intense curiosity or preparation for violence. Queen Commander Vexalia's head tilted in the predatory gesture that Chen had learned, meant a Threnody was deciding whether to kill something quickly or slowly. You repaired my armor. Well, let's be precise about this, Chen said, walking toward the table with the casual confidence of someone who had learned that showing fear to predators only encouraged them. I repaired what was left of your armor after someone tried to fix it, using entirely the wrong approach. He gestured at the breastplate with one oil-stained finger. See, your artisans here made a fundamental mistake. They assumed that quantum steel behaves the same way after being hit with human plasma weapons as it does in its original state. That's like assuming that glass behaves the same way after you've hit it with a hammer. Master Artisan Corvith's chrome inlays flared with indignation. The molecular structure of quantum steel is invariant under standard. Standard conditions, sure, Chen interrupted. But human plasma weapons don't create standard conditions. They create localized resonance cascades that alter the quantum steel's crystalline matrix at the subatomic level. Chen moved around the table, examining the armor from different angles, while the most dangerous beings in the Threnody Empire watched his every movement. Your people tried to restore the armor to its original specifications using traditional methods. That's not going to work when the base material has been fundamentally altered. And you understood this when our master craftsmen did not. Commander Zephys's skepticism was palpable. I understood that when something doesn't work the way it's supposed to, you don't keep doing the same thing harder, Chen replied. You figure out what changed and work with the new reality instead of fighting against it. He pointed to specific areas of the damaged armor. See these scorch patterns? Those aren't random. Human plasma weapons create specific resonance frequencies when they interact with quantum steel. Instead of trying to erase that interaction, I worked with it. Queen Commander Vexalia leaned forward, her 4 arms braced against the table. Explain. Chen grinned, recognizing the tone of someone who actually wanted to understand rather than simply assign blame. Your quantum steel has been partially converted into something new, a hybrid material that combines the structural integrity of your original armor with the adaptive properties that make human plasma weapons so effective. Adaptive properties. General Threx's voice carried genuine curiosity. Human technology doesn't rely on perfect materials or optimal conditions, Chen explained. We build things that can function when everything goes wrong, that can adapt to circumstances we didn't plan for. Your plasma-modified quantum steel has some of those same properties now. He moved to the armor's power coupling array, where his repairs were most visible. Instead of trying to restore the original resonance patterns, I created new ones that work with the altered molecular structure. The result is actually stronger than the original armor, with better energy dispersion characteristics and some interesting self-repair capabilities. The chamber fell silent as the implications of Chen's words sank in. Master Artisan Corvith's chrome inlays cycled through patterns that Chen had learned indicated intense cognitive processing. Essentially, the Threnody equivalent of having your mind blown. You're saying that human weapons didn't just damage the armor, Commander Zephys said slowly. They improved it. Not intentionally, Chen clarified. But yeah, basically, your armor is tougher now than it was when you started that battle. It just doesn't look the same as it used to. Queen Commander Vexalia stood to her full height, her 4 arms moving in gestures that Chen couldn't interpret, but that made every other being in the chamber tense with anticipation. "Demonstrate," she said. Chen blinked. "I'm sorry." "Demonstrate the armor's improved capabilities. Prove that your repairs have produced the results you claim." For a moment, Chen wondered if this was some elaborate setup for his execution. Then his engineering pride kicked in and he found himself nodding. "You'll need to clear the chamber. Some of these tests are going to be energetic." As the Threnody leadership moved to observation positions behind the chamber's protective barriers, Chen realized that he was either about to vindicate everything he'd learned about adaptive engineering or create the most spectacular failure of his career. Either way, it was going to be interesting. Chen activated the chamber's testing protocols with the matter-of-fact competence that had kept him alive through 3 months of alien captivity. The crystalline walls shifted to accommodate weapon ports and energy projectors, while atmospheric processors began cycling the air to handle whatever energetic phenomena were about to unfold. "Standard Threnody battle armor testing sequence," he announced to the assembled leadership watching from behind protective barriers. "We'll start with basic structural integrity and work our way up to full combat simulation." The first energy beam struck the repaired breastplate with enough force to vaporize a human-built structure. Instead of the expected damage, the armor absorbed the energy and redistributed it across its entire surface in patterns of light that reminded Chen of aurora dancing across a planet's magnetosphere. "Energy absorption efficiency is up 37% from original specifications," Chen reported, reading from the chamber's analysis displays. "The hybrid crystalline matrix created by the plasma weapon damage is actually channeling energy more effectively than pure quantum steel." Master Artisan Corvith's chrome inlays were cycling through colors Chen had never seen before. "That should not be possible. Quantum steel's energy channeling properties are mathematically optimized. They cannot be improved upon." "Sure they can," Chen replied, activating the next test sequence. "You just have to be willing to accept that optimization for one set of conditions might not be optimization for a different set of conditions." The second test subjected the armor to kinetic impacts that would have shattered conventional materials. The repaired breastplate not only absorbed the impacts, but seemed to grow stronger with each strike, its surface developing stress patterns that actually reinforced the overall structure. "Self-reinforcing capability," Chen noted with satisfaction. "The altered quantum steel learns from damage and adapts its molecular structure to prevent similar damage in the future. Basically, it gets tougher every time someone tries to break it." Queen Commander Vexalia's 4 arms were moving in patterns that Chen was pretty sure indicated either extreme excitement or preparation for violence. Possibly both. "How is this possible? Our materials scientists have spent millennia perfecting quantum steel's properties." "And they did a great job," Chen said. "But they were optimizing for perfection under ideal conditions. Human engineering optimizes for survival under terrible conditions. When you combine the two approaches." He gestured at the armor, which was now glowing with stored energy from the testing sequence. "You get something that's both perfect and adaptable." The final test was the most dangerous. A sustained plasma bombardment that simulated the kind of concentrated firepower that had originally damaged the armor. Chen had calculated the energy levels carefully, but there was always the possibility that he'd misjudged something critical. "If this goes badly," he said to Kithex, who was monitoring the test sequence, "tell my sister I died doing something scientifically interesting." The plasma barrage struck the armor like concentrated starlight, filling the chamber with energies that made the air itself glow. For a terrifying moment, Chen thought he'd miscalculated as the armor's surface began to change, flowing like liquid metal as it adapted to the incoming energy. Then the absorption pattern stabilized, and the armor began doing something that made every being in the chamber stare in shocked silence. It was repairing itself, using the incoming plasma energy to rebuild its own damaged sections and strengthen its overall structure. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished aliens," Chen announced as the test sequence concluded, "I present to you the first piece of truly adaptive armor in galactic history. It learns, it grows stronger, and it fixes itself. Your enemy's weapons make it tougher." The silence that followed was broken by Queen Commander Vexalia's laughter, a sound like grinding metal that somehow managed to convey genuine delight. "You have turned our greatest humiliation into our greatest advantage." "I just fixed what was broken," Chen replied. "Though I'll admit, this particular repair job turned out better than I expected." Master Artisan Corvith approached the armor with something approaching reverence. "The theoretical implications, if we could apply these principles to our entire fleet, that would require a fundamental shift in Threnody engineering philosophy," General Threx observed. "We would need to abandon our pursuit of perfection in favor of adaptability." "Not abandon," Chen corrected. "Synthesize. Your pursuit of perfection gives you incredible baseline capabilities. Human adaptability gives you the ability to improve beyond those baselines when circumstances change." Queen Commander Vexalia's 4 arms moved in the ritual gesture of formal decision. "Thomas Chen of the human species, I hereby offer you the position of Chief Integration Engineer of the Threnody Empire. Your task will be to synthesize human adaptive methodologies with Threnody theoretical frameworks." Chen blinked, not sure he'd heard correctly. "You're offering me a job." "I am offering you the chance to revolutionize engineering for 2 species," Vexalia clarified. "The war between our peoples has taught us that conflict is less important than cooperation when survival is at stake. And the benefits package," Commander Zephy's made a sound that Chen had learned, was the Threnody equivalent of snorting with amusement. "Better than mining engineer on Tau Ceti Prime, I would imagine." Chen looked around the chamber at the assembled alien leadership, then at his guard Kithix, who was managing something that might have been a smile despite lacking the appropriate facial structure for it. "You know what," Chen said finally, "I've had worse job offers. When do I start?" "You started 3 months ago," Queen Commander Vexalia replied. "We simply needed to make it official." As Chen began explaining his ideas for applying adaptive engineering principle to Threnody starship design, he found himself thinking that this was probably the strangest career change in human history. But then again, he'd always been better at fixing impossible things than at following normal career paths.